Welcome! This explainer is based on the works of Professor Vihar Kiskinov, and we're diving into a really profound shift in how we need to think about law. You see, as our world becomes more and more digital, the very foundation of our legal systems is being re-engineered. We're moving away from a system that just reacts to the world to one that actively and intentionally constructs it. To really get a handle on this, just look at the contrast between then and now. Traditionally, law sort of grew organically. It was spontaneous, reactive. It responded to things after they happened out there in the real world. But in our information society, that approach just doesn't work anymore. Law has to be systematic, it has to be driven by models. It's no longer about interpreting what happened, it's about building the ideal digital space where legal things happen in the first place. So here's the roadmap for our discussion. First, we'll look at this new digital frontier for law. Then, we'll nail down exactly what virtual legal reality is. After that, we'll break it down into its two key parts: the static components, think of those as the blueprint, and the dynamic processes, which are like the engine. Then we'll see how it all works in the real world, and we'll finish up by looking at the totally new role law has to play now. All right, let's get right to the heart of it. What exactly is this virtual legal reality? Well, according to Professor Kiskinov, this concept completely changes the main goal of legal science. You see, it's not enough anymore to just study and analyze the laws we already have. The new job, the new objective, is to actually design and build the environment where law is going to live and breathe. This quote from Professor Kiskinov says it all, doesn't it? It perfectly captures this massive shift. We are literally moving from a science of observation, where you study something that exists, to a science of creation, where the whole point is to build a new, ideal reality for law, right from scratch. That's a huge change in purpose. So let's break that definition down. The best way to think about virtual legal reality is like an architect's digital blueprint for the legal system. Before law ever touches the real world, all its rules, all its players, and all its processes are first designed and modeled in this perfect virtual space. It's an environment that's constructed on purpose, not one that just sort of happens by accident over time. Okay, so if you're going to build this new reality, you're going to need some building blocks. That brings us to our third section, where we look at the statics. These are the fundamental, unchanging pieces of our blueprint. If you want a simple way to think about it, these are the nouns of our new legal language. So, here's our essential parts list for this construction project. Let's just touch on a few key ones. Normative structures. That's the abstract model of the rules, the very foundation. Legal entities. Those are the digital versions of people and companies. And legal facts. Those are the specific provable pieces of data, like a birth record or a property deed, that the whole system runs on. All of these together make up the static, stable blueprint for our digital legal world. So how does something real become virtual in this system? Let's take a company. In this new reality, a company's legal identity isn't a piece of paper in a dusty filing cabinet. No, it's a virtual entity. It is defined completely by structured data in an electronic registry. Its entire legal existence is literally a model inside a database. And this exact same idea applies to what we call legal facts. Think about an event, like selling a house or appointing a new director to a company. Those events are no longer just paper trails. They become data points, structured, machine-readable data points. And as soon as they're captured in a digital registry, they become facts that the virtual legal system can automatically read, process, and act on. Okay, so we've got our building blocks, the statics. But a pile of parts doesn't build itself, right? You need an engine to put it all together and make it go. And that's our fourth section, the dynamics. These are the active processes, the methods that bring this whole virtual structure to life. And here's a look at one of these dynamic methods in action. You can see it's a very clear flow. It starts with an abstract idea, a general model from legal science. Then, that model gets very specific with concrete rules during the lawmaking process. And finally, information technology takes those rules and turns them into a live automated procedure that can actually run inside the virtual environment. It's a clean pipeline from a big idea all the way to a working process. So, if the statics were the nouns of our system, then it's easy to see the dynamics as the verbs. They are the action words. They are the methods for creating rules, for interpreting them systematically, and for automatically putting the law into practice. These are the processes that actually use the static components we just talked about to make the whole system work. So, we've got the blueprint and we've got the engine, but this is where the rubber meets the road. How does all this theory actually come together to solve real problems in the real world? In our fifth section, let's move from the abstract framework to some very practical applications. And the truth is, you've probably already seen this at work all around you. Think about e-government services that are built on top of digital registries, or automated systems that can resolve a dispute you have with an online seller. These things only work because they're running on structured digital facts and pre-programmed rules. They are early but really powerful examples of a virtual legal reality in action. And the advantages become so obvious when you put the two approaches side by side. The traditional legal process, as you know, can be manual, incredibly slow, and often inconsistent. But the virtual process, because it's built on a system and a model, is just worlds more efficient. It's automated, it's systematic, and it's fast. And that creates a far more predictable legal system for everyone involved. Now, everything we've talked about is pointing toward one very profound conclusion. For our final section, let's zoom out and realize that we're not just talking about changing some legal procedures. We are actually changing the entire purpose of legal science. And this is really the biggest takeaway from Professor Kiskinov's work. This slide just captures that new role perfectly. Legal science is shifting from being a passive observer, someone who just interprets laws that already exist, to being an active designer and builder of legal systems. It's really the difference between being a historian who studies an old building and being the architect who designs a new one from the ground up. And that brings us to the core conclusion of this whole idea. In the information age, we can't think of law as something that just grows out of society anymore. It has become an engineered system. And just like any complex engineered system, it must be consciously designed, systematically built, and carefully maintained if we want it to work properly in our digital world. So this leaves us with a final, really big question to think about. We've seen how law, a system that's been around for centuries, is being completely re-architected. If a system that fundamental needs a total redesign for the digital age, what other core pillars of our society, things like governance or economics or even education, might need to be similarly rebuilt from the ground up?